materials in your elevation views as well as your plan views. For right now, I'll just leave the keynote and mark information blank. In fact, I'll leave most of this information blank, except I do want to change the class information. This being brick, it's not really generic. It's going to be a different kind of material. So I'm going to select on the little down arrow toward the right, and then change this class of material to be a masonry material. Once I have this information set, I'll then come down here to OK in order to finish creating this brick material. The properties of a material affect the way that that material displays in all the different views inside of Revit. That could be inside of a rendering. It could be a plane view. It could be a reflected ceiling plane view, elevation view, sections. You name the kind of view, and if there's a material in it, it displays the way that it does due to the material properties associated with that material. Currently on the screen, I have a wall as well as a floor, and I've assigned a generic material to it, which I've named brick. Now, what we need to do is go into that brick material and actually give it the display properties that a material known as brick should have. Let's start by going up to the Manage tab, and then over to the left-hand side, select on Materials. Now, underneath your material browser, by default, it should highlight on the word brick. If for some reason it isn't highlighting on brick, just scroll down and then select on brick. Now, there's two main tabs that control the way that a material displays inside of the Revit environment. For this exercise, we'll concentrate our efforts on the Graphics tab. But there's also an Appearance tab. And the Appearance tab affects the way that a material will render when you select on the Render button in Revit. But underneath the Graphics tab, we get to control the way that a material looks when we cut a section through it, when we look at it in elevation or in plane view, and also the way that that material will display as having a certain color. The color is affected by what shows up underneath shading. Now, shading is if you have a shaded view in your Revit environment. Now, in that shaded view, you can either have the material display as its actual rendered color by putting a little check mark where we have Use Render Appearance, or by clearing out that checkbox, you can then make that material display as any color you'd like it to display as by clicking where the color displays. So when you select where it has that color, you'll then get the color dialog box where you can select either one of the basic colors, a custom color if you're choosing, a color that you pick over toward the right-hand side, or a Pantone color if you select on Pantone and then select one of those colors off of the dialog box that would then show up. What I'd like to do, since the material that we've selected is brick, is to use either a red color or a brown color. And I'll leave that up to you as to exactly which color it is that you choose. Now you can either choose one of the basic colors over toward the left, or just click somewhere over into this area and then choose one of the available colors. I'm going to choose sort of a reddish brown color by just clicking and moving my cursor until I see a color which is kind of a reddish brown. And then that will be the color of my brick. But choose whatever color that you'd like for your brick. Click on OK. And now you can see that whatever color it is that you've selected is now the color that will display when we turn on shading. There's also an option here for transparency. That doesn't really apply so much when we're dealing with bricks, but if we have water or glass or some other kind of transparent material, this is where you can set the transparency of that object. The next section down is surface pattern. Surface pattern would be for elevation views, 3D views, when you're looking at a material such as a floor in a plan view, or if you're looking at a ceiling in a reflected ceiling plane view. Click where it has none for pattern, and then you can choose any of these patterns off of the list. Since this is a brick pattern, I'm interested in finding a pattern that looks like bricks. But there are two different kinds of patterns that we can choose from. and those are found underneath pattern type. A drafting pattern would be the way that a material would display if you cut a section through that material. What I'd like to do is choose instead a model pattern so that we're looking at that material either in an elevation or in a floor plan kind of view. This is a brick, so scroll down until you can find a brick material. In this case, I'll select on brick and then just click on OK. If we want that brick, meaning the line work, to be a different color other than the 120, 120, 120, we can do that by clicking in here and then choosing another color. Where you might want that is if you want to have your line work become darker. Let's say that the lines that make up the brick, you want it to be more of a black color. You could then click on this arrow and then just pull it down to give it a new, darker color. You click on OK, and now we can see that the line work that will make up that pattern or brick is now darker. We also need to choose a cut pattern. That would be as if we're cutting a section through it, either in, well, obviously a section view, or sometimes even in a plan view where you're cutting through the walls at a certain height. For the pattern, I'm just going to click and now look for some kind of brick pattern. I'll scroll down, see if we have any masonry brick options. We do. So I'll select for the masonry brick and then just click on OK. Now that we have a masonry brick cut pattern and a surface pattern, I'd like to just click on OK to accept these settings for a brick material. If we now zoom in, we'll be able to see that the floor, which is made out of a brick material, now has that brick material associated with it. If we decide to take a look at this in a 3D view, we can then move our cursor up here to the default 3D view button. If we zoom in, we can see that we now have a brick wall as well as a brick floor. Also, back in the plan view, I had a section view cut. Underneath the project browser, if we scroll down until we find sections and then double click on section 1, if we zoom in, we'll see that right now I'm not seeing any sort of brick pattern, but that's because of the detail level being set to coarse. If we select on the detail level button and then change it to fine, we can now see that brick cross section, which is the same material that we set, once again underneath the Manage tab and Materials, for the cut pattern of this brick material. The properties of a material affect the way that a material will display and render inside of the Revit environment. Let's first zoom in to where we have the wall and the floor by just spinning the wheel of our mouse until we can see the material pattern on both the wall and the floor. Then move your cursor over to the Visual Styles button, click, and then select on Shaded so that we can see the color currently associated with the brick, which is a part of this wall and the floor. What I'd like to do is change the color of this brick so that it matches its actual rendered appearance. Move your cursor up to the Manage tab, then select on Materials. From here in the Material browser, make sure the brick has been highlighted. If for some reason brick is not highlighted, just scroll down over on the left-hand side and then select on Brick. The reason why the brick material is orange currently in our view is because underneath Graphics, for shading, the color of orange has been selected. What I want to do, though, is use the rendered appearance of that brick, and that would be the color of the brick inside of our view. So put a check mark next to Use Render Appearance. Now immediately you'll notice that the orange hasn't changed inside of our view. To see that change, need to select on the Apply button. Now we can see that it has now applied that new color to the brick. Now, while brick can be sort of a dark gray, I really don't want to use that color as being my brick material or the way that it renders. So to change the way that the brick renders, we'll go to the Appearance tab. That gray color, it's being generated from the color that says RGB 80, 80, 80. In fact, if we would click where that color is at, we would then get another menu which would allow us to select on other colors. If we selected on that color, clicked on OK, then our view would automatically update with that latest and greatest color. But what I really would like to do is have an image be used, and that image be the image that's used for the brick, and the color from the image be what is used for the way that the brick displays. Now we would have a couple of different options there. We can either select where it says no image selected, and then go searching for an image on our computer that is of that brick. Or what I usually like to do is to pick one of the default materials and then go with one of those default brick materials. To find those default materials that come with Revit, over toward the left-hand side, there's this Open Close Asset Browser button. Click on that button. We can either scroll through all the materials which are available to us, or we could just, in the search bar, type in brick and let it start to search for all the different kinds of bricks which are available to us. We can see that we have this document assets over on the left-hand side. Each one of these is a different category where the word brick appears. So we can choose from any of these kinds of materials, any of these bricks that we want to be the brick that we're using inside of our project environment. Now, for some reason, none of these bricks work as the kind of brick that we want. That's where we would come over here to where we have image and no image selected, click on it, find an image of a brick that we would want to use, and then that would be the brick that would actually be used in the project. But for our project, just look until you can find a brick that you would like to use. I'm going to use this non-uniform running burgundy brick. Now you can use any brick that you want. This just happens to be the brick that I'm going to choose. Now I just double clicked really quick on it, and now it's applied that brick material to our material, which is called brick. Next thing I'm going to do is move my cursor down and then select on apply. Notice how Revit has now done its best to actually match the color that we see here in the image of the brick here inside of our model environment. If we click on OK, we can now see that, in fact, this brick is this red color. Now, finally, this is also the way that this brick will actually render. So let's go through the process of just very quickly rendering this brick. Come down here to Show Rendering Dialog, and it looks like a little teapot icon. Click. I'm going to change this to be a medium setting just so that it displays a little bit better. Then I'm going to click on the Render button. Notice how it's now rendering the brick using the material that we had selected. If we would go back in and change that material to be a different kind of brick, a different color of brick, then it would render that way and also change the color of the brick appropriately. Finally, if we want to just be able to see our model once again, we can click on the Show the Model button, and that will once again show the model with that new red color that's now associated with our brick. To tag a material in Revit, typically you would either be in an elevation view or a section view, or maybe in a floor plan view. And currently what we're looking at is that we have a wall and a floor both made out of the same material. Let's first go to a floor plan view and then tag one of these materials inside of a floor plan view. So underneath the project browser, floor plans, double click on level 1. Zoom in so that you can see the floor a little bit better just by spinning the wheel of your mouse. Then go to the Annotate tab on the ribbon. Over toward the right-hand side, your icon may be a little bit bigger than mine depending on the resolution of your screen. There's an option there for Material Tag. Click on Material Tag. Move your cursor down here, and then once you're somewhere over the floor, wherever you'd like to place your material tag at, just click to place your material tag. Then hit the Escape key on the keyboard. What you'll notice is that you'll get this little question mark symbol. And the reason why you have a question mark is that this material has never been either tagged before or has never actually had any kind of designation associated with it before. Click once on the question mark, click a second time on the question mark, and now let's type in BRK-1. That's what will designate this material to be, brick-1. Now let's go to an elevation view. Move your cursor under the project browser and then double click on East. Now, you may remember that I said that this wall is made out of the same type of brick as what the floor is made out of. That means that since we've now officially given a label to that brick material on the floor, that label should now also affect the wall. Let's take a look and see if it does. Select on the material tag, move your cursor down. Now you can see that brick-1, in fact, is what that tag is displaying. Click, hit escape maybe a couple of times to get out of the command, and now we can see that we have brick-1 here as a material for the wall. If we click where we have the brick-1 and then decide, all right, we want to make a change to this brick-1, we can. Click it till you see this designation, then change the -1 to be -2 instead. Click out. Then underneath the project browser, double click on level 1. Notice how it's now updated itself to be brick-2. But maybe we want to have different brick for the floor as opposed to the wall. To accomplish that task, we need to go to the Manage tab, then come over here to Materials. Now we know that that's a brick material. In fact, I know that that brick material is actually called brick. And if we select on brick, we can now select on this tab that says Identity. And we'll notice that for the description of this brick material, it's brick-2. What I'd like to do is create a new material. It'll also be a brick material, but it'll be associated with brick-1. So over on the left-hand side, with brick highlighted, right-click, and now duplicate. This material, the duplicate, will be BRK-1. Then hit Enter. For the original brick material, select on brick, right-click, rename BRK-2. We can see that the BRK-2 still has a description of BRK-2. But if we select on BRK-1, it also says BRK-2. So we need to change our description to be BRK-1. If we click on BRK-2, we can see that it's kept its description, but the BRK-1 is now updated. Next thing we need to do is then click on OK. I want to change just the floor material to be the BRK-1. The wall will stay the -2. So we'll select on the floor, then come over here to Edit Type. Here in the type properties of the floor, we now need to change the floor to a different type of material. So where we have the structure, select on the Edit button. And instead of being BRK-2 for the material, let's select BRK-1. Click on OK, click on OK. Notice how the floor material is now updated to be BRK-1. If we look at the wall, which we can do once again underneath elevations, if we go to the east, we can see that that is BRK-2. If we go to a 3D view, which we can do if we come up here to the default 3D view button, we can see that the materials still look the same, and that's because we didn't change any of the properties associated with how the bricks look, but they're designated as being different. One is BRK-1 and the other is BRK-2 based off of the fact that they've been assigned now different materials. Currently we have a wall as well as a floor, both made out of the same material. And if we would select on the floor, we can see that underneath properties on the touch selector list, it says floor brick. If we click on Edit Type, Here in the Type Properties dialog box, next to Structure, there's an Edit button. Click Edit. Currently, our floor structure is made up of brick and it's 1 foot in thickness. So maybe we have multiple layers of brick stacked on top of each other in order to make this big, thick brick floor. Well, it's not uncommon to have a floor that has multiple layers of material associated with it. If we select on the OK button and then go up here to Type, click where it has the word brick. Now on this Type selector list, choose Wood Joist 10-inch Ceramic Tile. Now let's click the Edit button again. From here we can see that there's multiple layers of material associated with this floor type. And oftentimes when you're drawing in your floors, you'll be using floors that look like this with multiple layers of material. But there's still another kind of floor type which is gaining popularity in our industry. What many companies are doing is that they have a structural floor. So they'll actually draw in the way that the floor structure would look. Then later on, come back in and add floor finishes to that floor. Now, this works out really well because that's how floors are actually constructed out in real life. You'll have a structural floor, construction will continue, and then later on, a finished floor will be put into place closer to the end of the project. That's what I want to accomplish today. So in order to do those steps, let's click on the OK button and then come up here to Duplicate. We're going to make a copy of the Wood Joist 10-inch Ceramic Tile floor. Now instead of being Ceramic Tile 2, let's just get rid of the Ceramic Tile 2. So it's a Wood Joist 10-inch floor. Click on OK. Now next to Structure, click on the Edit button. Since it's only Wood Joist 10-inch, this will be our structural floor. Since it's the structural floor, we do not require the finished materials. So select where the number 2 is located, click on Delete. Click at the number 1, select on Delete. Then click OK and OK. Click out here, and now we can see that we just have that wood joist floor. It's just a structural floor. The next thing that I want to do is add another floor on top of this floor, and that floor will be just the finished material. To create that floor, come up here to the Architecture tab, select on Floor. Underneath Properties, go to the Type Selector list, and once again, select on that Wood Joist 10-inch Ceramic Tile floor. Click on Edit Type, and we want to make another duplicate. And this duplicate will just be called Ceramic Tile. Click on OK, then click the Edit button next to Structure. The next thing that we need to do is remove each of the structural parts of this floor. So start by selecting on number 5, click Delete. Now you'll notice that when you select on the number 4, it does not allow you to delete this layer. And the reason is that whenever you make a floor in Revit, you need to have at least one layer of material between each of the core boundaries. So let's select on this Finish 1, 4, then click on Down to move that material down between the two core boundaries. Click on the number 4, and now we can see that we can delete this layer of material. So now we have the mosaic tile, as well as what we have now as being a concrete cast in place, which is just a 1/2 inch in thickness. The overall thickness of the 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch is a 3/4 inch thick finish that'll be placed on top of the floor. Click on OK. Click on OK again. Right now we can see that we're still going through the process of drawing a floor because we were in the floor command. So to accomplish that task, let's go to a floor plan view, double click on level 1, zoom in, then use the rectangle tool There's also, underneath properties at this point, an option here for height offset from level. Well, the overall thickness of that floor was 3/4 of an inch, so that's what we need to type in, 3/4 of an inch. Because the structural floor is going to level 1, then the height offset off of that structural floor is 3/4 of an inch, the overall thickness of the tile floor that we're getting ready to place. Click here, come across like this, then click. Then lock each one of these lines into place. By locking each of those lines into place, it means that if the wall should move out, if the overall dimensions of the structural floor that this floor is attached to should adjust, the floor finish will adjust along with it. So that has some really good applications. It means that if your overall room dimensions would adjust, your finished floor material will adjust along with it. Next, click on the big green check mark and then click off in this direction. Now it's kind of hard to see what's going on, so let's just select here on the default 3D view button. And if we zoom in, we can now see that we have two different layers of material. There's the wood joist 10-inch, then there's the floor ceramic tile. In fact, if we would do a section through that floor, if we go back to the floor plan levels, level 1, click on this section symbol, right click, then go to view. We can zoom in and then see the multiple layers of material which is associated with this floor. This is actually my own personal favorite way to apply material finishes to floors. Have a structural floor and then come back later and then apply an actual floor finish floor there inside of each of the spaces. That also means that if at some later time your client decides, I want to make a change to that flooring material, all you need to do is select on your finished floor, exchange that out with appropriate floor type, and then without adjusting the structural members of the Revit model at all, you can then change the floor finish on a room by room basis.